Dividing decimals. The objectives in this lesson are 1. To divide a decimal by a whole number, 2. To divide decimals, 3. To divide a decimal by a power of 10, and 4. To solve applications involving decimal subtraction and division. To divide a decimal by a whole number, 1. Determine the sign of the quotient. 2. Place the decimal point in the quotient directly above the decimal point in the dividend. And 3. Divide as usual. Negative 43 and 92 hundredths divided by 8. First, determine the sign of your answer. It will be a negative answer since our signs are different. Next, rewrite the problem as a long division problem. The decimal point goes straight up into the quotient. Now divide as you would in whole numbers. Make sure you put the negative sign on your final answer. Your quotient is negative 5 and 49 hundredths. Negative 2 and 76 hundredths divided by 8. Notice our signs are different, so our quotient will be negative. 2.76 divided by 8. 8 will not go into 2, so I'll be dividing 8 into the 27. Be sure to bring your decimal straight up. 8 goes into 27 3 times. I'm going to multiply 3 times 8, which is 24. 27 minus 24 is 3. And then I'm going to bring down my 6. And now I need to divide again. 8 goes into 36 4 times. 4 times 8 is 32. 36 minus 32 is 4. Now I can't just write a decimal answer with a remainder 4, so I need to add a 0, bring it down, and then go back up and divide again. And hope that my quotient will either terminate or repeat. 8 goes into 45 times. 5 times 8 is 40. 40 take away 40 is 0. So now I have a remainder of 0, so my decimal quotient has terminated. So the quotient is 345 thousandths. And remember, your answer is negative. Negative 21 and 92 hundredths divided by negative 5. Notice your signs are the same, so your quotient is going to be positive. Bring your decimal straight up. I'm going to divide. 5 won't go into 2, but 5 goes into 21 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. Subtract and get 1. Now I'm going to bring down the 9. Go back up and divide. 5 goes into 19 3 times. 3 times 5 is 15. I subtract and get 4. Now I'm going to bring down my 2. 5 goes into 42 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40. When I subtract, I get 2, which means I'm going to have to add a 0 and bring it down. Let's say I'm out of room here, so I'm going to bring my 20 up here. 5 goes into 20 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. So once again, my decimal quotient has terminated. My answer is positive, so I have 4 and 384 thousandths. To divide decimals, 1. Determine the sign of the quotient first. 2. Move the decimal point in the divisor to the right to make it a whole number. 3. Move the decimal point in the dividend the same number of places. Add zeros if necessary. 4. Place the decimal point in the quotient directly above the decimal point in the dividend. And 5. Divide as usual. Negative 36 and 1/10 divided by 25 hundredths. First, determine the side of your answer. The signs are different, so your answer is negative. Now, rewrite the problem as a long division problem. You need to move the decimal point in the divisor, that's a 0.25, 2 places to the right to make it a whole number. Also, move the decimal point in the dividend, that's the 36.1, the same number of places. You will need to add a 0 as a placeholder. Put the decimal point straight up into the quotient and divide as usual. Add a 0 behind the decimal point and continue dividing. Be sure to put the negative sign on your final answer. Your quotient is negative 144 and 4/10. 79 and 9/10 divided by negative 34 hundredths. Notice your signs are different, so our quotient will be negative. 79.9 divided by 0.34. Since I have a decimal point in my divisor, I need to move my decimal 2 to the right to turn 34 into a whole number, which means I also need to move my decimal 2 to the right in my dividend. So I'm going to have to place a 0 as a placeholder. I'm going to bring my decimal straight up. So just remember, your decimal is now right there, which I've just put in the wrong spot. It's easy to do that, so be careful. 34 goes into 79 twice. 2 times 34 is 68. 9 take away 8 is 1. 7 take away 6 is 1. So I divided, multiplied, and subtracted. Now I need to bring down. 34 goes into 119 3 times. 3 times 34 is 102. I subtract, I get 17. Bring down your 0. 34 goes into 175 times. And this works out nicely because 5 times 34 is 170. My remainder is 0. So my quotient has terminated. Now, be really careful because remember the decimal is behind the 0 right here, okay? So you don't really, since it's a whole number, you don't really need to include the decimal in your answer. So our quotient is negative 235. Negative 6 and 67 hundredths divided by negative 58 hundredths. Notice our signs are both the same, so our quotient is going to be positive. 6 and 67 hundredths divided by 58 hundredths. All right, we need to change our divisor into a whole number, so I'm moving my decimal 2 to the right, 1, 2. And the 2 to the right here, 1, 2. And let me make my decimal big, so I remember that it's there, and I'll even bring it up. So you might want to do that too. Okay, so I'm going to divide. 58 won't go into 6, but it goes into 66 one time. 58 times 1 is 58. 66 minus 58 is 8. Bring down my 7. Divide, multiply, subtract. I brought down, so I'm going back up to divide. 58 goes into 87 one time. 1 times 58 is 58. 87 minus 58 is 29. So I have a remainder here, so I'm going to have to add a 0 behind the decimal, drop it down, and then divide again. 58 goes into 295 times, and this works out nicely again because 58 times 5 is 290. So our decimal terminates. So our quotient is a positive 11 and 5/10. To divide a decimal by a power of 10, 1. Move the decimal point to the left as many places as there are zeros in the power of 10. 2. Add zeros as needed as placeholders. And 3. Make sure you write the decimal point at the correct place in the number. 1 and 5/10 divided by 100. There are 2 zeros in the power of 10, so you will move the decimal point 2 places to the left. You will need to add a 0 and make sure you place the decimal point in front of that 0. There are 3 zeros in the power of 10, so you will move the decimal 3 places to the left when you divide -38 and 17/100 by 1000. You will need to add a 0 and make sure you place the decimal point in front of that 0. Don't forget your negative sign on your answer. $845 and 1900 divided by 10,000. Notice 10,000 has 4 zeros, so I'm going to be moving my decimal 4 places to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll need to put a 0 right here. Remember, your decimal is right here. And I like to place a 0 in front of my decimal also. So our quotient is 0.0845519. We already did this problem, so let me write a different one up here. -1.043 divided by 10. So we have 1.043. Our power of 10 only has 1 0 in it, so we just need to move our decimal 1 place to the left. So we won't have to be adding any zeros for placeholders. So we'll have decimal 1043. I like to place a 0 in front of the decimal as well, and remember the negative. Solving applications involving decimal subtraction and division. Today, 9 friends went to lunch. Their total bill was $66.86, including tax and tip. One of them ordered only a soda and needed to pay only $1.82. The other 8 friends ordered the same daily special. How much did each of the other friends need to pay? First, you need to subtract the $1.82 from the total bill of $66.86. That is the amount that must be divided among the remaining 8 people, $65.04. Divide $65.04 by 8. The remaining 8 friends need to pay $8.13 each. Jeff's annual salary is $26,000. A total of $7,928.96 is deducted from his salary for taxes and health insurance. He receives his paycheck monthly in 12 equal installments. How much will he get paid with each paycheck? First, you need to subtract the $7,928.96 from the annual salary of $26,000. That is the amount that must be divided into 12 paychecks. Divide $18,071.04 by 12. Jeff's monthly paycheck will be $1,505.92. Today, 6 friends went to lunch. The bill was $34.50, including tax and tip. They decided to split the bill equally and each paid with a $10 bill. How much money will each person get back? Each of the 6 friends just contributed $10 towards the bill. So altogether, 10 times 6, they paid with $60. So we're going to take that $60 and we're going to subtract the amount of the bill, which was $34.50. Which means they would get back $25.50 altogether. And now we need to divide the $25.50. We're going to split that out equally among the 6 friends again. And so each friend will get back $4.25. Stephanie has a class of 18 students. She can spend $17 on each student to buy math supplies for the year. She buys all of her students' calculators, which costs a total of $152.10. After buying the calculators, how much does she have left to spend on each student? She can spend $17 on each student. I'm going to multiply that by 18 because she has 18 students. So that's a total of $306 that she has to spend. She spent $152.10 on calculators. So if we want to figure out how much money she has remaining, we'll do $306 minus $152.10, which means she has $153.90 remaining altogether. But the question asks us, how much does she have left to spend on each student? So now I'm going to take that $153.90 and I'm going to split it up now equally amongst the 18 students. And so that means that for the remainder of the school year, she has $8.55 left to spend on each student. Review of lesson objectives. After completing this lesson, you should be able to 1. Divide a decimal by a whole number, 2. Divide decimals, 3. Divide a decimal by a power of 10, and 4. Solve applications involving decimal subtraction and division.